So the earlier dialogues this season have been following the principles that we have identified and described in the open knowledge statement. Today we are going back, so to speak, to an updated tool kit. We have two tools that we want to present to you, and I will start by sharing my screen, by the way, before I let the floor to our expert who will explain like this. It says number 9. Actually, this is the 10th because we had a biz version also. So my name is Bente Liliaby. I am a member of the GEO Data Working Group, and together with Marie-Françoise Vadreau from OGC, we are hosting and organizing the GEO Dialogue series. I have been a member of the GEO community for many, many years. I have had different roles, both as a participating or an alternate for my country, Norway. I have also included a participating organization dealing with in situ data. And I have been a member of the program board. I run a company, a research and consultancy company, all about making Earth observations applicable in various societal contexts. Going further today to today's program, we will have an introduction to the topic of today. It will be not on focus on the open knowledge statement, but a special twist on it that Marie-Françoise Vadreau will give you. Then we will have an update on the self-assessment tool already presented last season by Lionel Menard. We are excited about that. And we have somebody here with an expertise or have been using that tool, Best Practices on Self-Assessment by Marco Foligani. And we have GREC, which is all about in situ data management tool that will be presented by Joan Masso. And we will, of course, as per usual, have a discussion and a dialogue. So that is today's program. Some house rules is that please keep your microphone muted when you're not speaking. Ask questions, by all means, ask questions and comment in the chat during the presentations and whenever you want. When we are reaching the discussion or dialogue part, you are more than welcome to raise your hand and participate in the dialogue. We really want you to be actively participating and engaged. And besides that, enjoy the GEO Dialogue series, the last one in 2023. The first speaker is Marie-Françoise Vadreau. She's a director of the OGC Innovation Program and has a focus on initiative related to Earth observations. She is involved in several projects and activities related to Earth observations, among others, NextGeos, eShape, and InCase, which is focusing on in situ. So she's really a good advocate for in situ data. She has a long experience, more than 30 years in Meteo France, so operational expertise. And she was awarded the OGC's Gardel Award. So a very high expertise of Marie-Françoise. And Marie-Françoise, it's my pleasure to give you the floor today.
Thank you, Bente. I will share my screen and go to slideshow. So as Bente has said, this is a very special dialogue this year. If you have attended the previous one, because this one is part of a series, and the series this year has presented in a very comprehensive way all the different approaches to open knowledge with different dialogues. All of them are recorded and accessible on the Knowledge Hub. And this one is the last one, as we said, and it's a very special one because it's about the self-assessment tool Progress and the GREX tool for in situ requirements. And I will explain why we consider this is a logical series and why the data working group is working on that. So first, the GEO community in a nutshell. because the GEO Data Working Group is part of GEO, and GEO is an intergovernmental organization that gathers the 7 continents with 140 participating organizations, but more than that, 114 countries and 19 associates. And they work in supporting the global agendas of the Sendai Framework, the Paris Agreement, the UN 2030 Agenda, New Urban Agenda, and so on. So they are very much cooperating and engaged at international level with the major global agendas. And this GEO group on Earth observation is organized with a work program with several working groups. And we are here talking in name of the GEO Data Working Group, which is itself organized in 3 subgroups. One about in situ, because as Bente has said, we think it's an important focus to encourage, foster, and advocate the data sharing for in situ and better data management, but also the data sharing and data management principal subgroups, and the law and policy, because again, law and policies and licenses is something which is sometimes underestimated, and we want to develop and facilitate a better use of licenses. So the GEO Working Group motivation is to support the data sharing and develop the data sharing and data management principles that have been developed, but need to be advocated. The Earth observation community needs to be engaged because we need to mainstream this knowledge, and concrete results need to be delivered and made available. The 3 key words for GEO are to advocate, engage, and deliver, and the works are organized in initiatives to serve the main societal benefit areas by these 3 core activities. And I will show here how this working group supports and implements these 3 priorities. So how do we advocate? We advocate with this dialogue series. In 2022, we have developed a GEO data sharing and GEO data management principles series. And we have also organized 1 dialogue per different data management principles, and talking also about the connection with fair care and trust. And this year, we have reviewed this open knowledge statement and all the strategies which are in, because this statement has been endorsed in 2021, but we could see that we needed to raise awareness and to advocate the move from data sharing to open knowledge sharing, which is broader, and also to align a broad and diverse community on this move, because GEO is global. And of course, we have this diversity of culture regions, and we have to move and to progress all together. And so mainstream the knowledge as a sharing, knowledge sharing as a mindset. Everyone has to think about what can I share about the work I am developing. So in 2022, the series had 33 speakers from 4 regions and their related communities. In 2023, there is a typo here. It's 35 speakers from 4 regions and more diverse than last year. So we are progressing on the advocacy through the global GEO community. And we have also not only engaged with within GEO, but also beyond GEO. So these were the speakers of the 2022 series. Again, with a very good diversity in terms of representation. And these were the speakers of this year. You can see from all the continents and from all the communities, more and more communities and thematic communities. So what we have delivered, because we said, okay, excuse me, I was talking here about engagement. We are advocating, open knowledge, but we have engaged globally with all these experts and their related communities. What we are delivering is not only the knowledge, because as said before, all these dialogues have been recorded, And the recordings are discoverable and accessible through the GEO Knowledge Hub. And you have here the link to the Knowledge Hub. And we keep on delivering tools. And these tools are also discoverable and accessible through the GEO Knowledge Hub. Well, this is the case for the self-assessment tool. I hope it will be soon for the GREX. And what we want to show is that this tool, at least the self-assessment tool this year, is usable and used. And we have invited a user, who is Marco Folegani, to bring his feedback on his experience. And all these tools and knowledge are useful to all domains and all regions within and out of GEO. So last year, this was the list of the different dialogues. This year, this was the list of the dialogues. Last year, we have finished with an introduction about the self-assessment tool. And this year, we are going to see how this tool has progressed, but also, as said before, we will have a testimony from a user. And we will introduce a new tool, GREX, which is arriving because we hope to engage with the community on this tool as soon as possible. The recordings and package are all available, discoverable, and open on the GEO Knowledge Hub, which is itself also a tool which is delivered, implemented, and improved by the GEO Secretariat. With that, I have explained what is this dialogue about, how it is supporting the work from the GEO Data Working Group and from for GEO, and all the benefits you can get with it. And I let the floor to Lionel for the first tool.
So Lionel Menard, he's a research scientist at the Center for Observation Impacts Energy at MinParisTech, I think. He has in-depth knowledge of system development life cycle, management of information system, and spatial data infrastructure. He has been involved in GEO also for a very long time, particularly GeoVenir, which is dedicated to or about energy, but he is also has also contributed a lot to the GIDDT in various under various names, and of course an active member of the GEO data working groups and working on promoting the data sharing principles, the data management principles. And with extensive experience from multiple research and innovation projects. Lionel, we are looking forward to see the updates on the tool.
Thank you, Bente. So I guess now I can share my screen. Okay, guess you can see it, and I will be in. Can you see it in full screen?
Yes. Okay,
cool. So, yes, so this presentation is about the data management plan self-assessment tool. So it's a tool that's been already developed. I will present the tool again and provide you with an update on the statute and the update of this tool for the next year. So I will jump this one. Just to set the scene, this data management plan, self-assessment tool, is considering data and metadata on the two pillars, which are the GEO data sharing principle and data management principle, and the FAIR principle. It is not covering anything which has to deal with care or trust. And of course, all these principles, GEO and FAIR, are basically based on open standard and interoperability. So the data management plan as a definition, basically for me, if I have to say, well, it is the glue, basically the concrete glue with all the principles that may come in the scope of GEO and beyond. And the definition stands as the DMP to be a formal document outlining how the data should be handled during and after the project is completed. So the idea there is that you have already a notion of trajectory, which I will introduce later, and journey. So basically, it's something which is dynamic. It considers the aspect of data management, metadata, data preservation before the project begins. And if doing good, and if we do good regarding this, we hope that the data will be well managed in the present and for the preservation in the future. So again, this definition introduced, which I think is nicely introduced here, is the notion of dynamic journey and trajectory. So DMP, data management plan, can be used in several contexts. First is regulatory, so basically it is something that all people which have deal with any funding agency, whether it is national or international, may have see this as something which is required. So the European Commission is requiring DMP to be aligned with FAIR principle, and when it comes to funding regarding GEO activity, it requests as well to be aligned with the GEO recommendation on interoperability, and then you come up with the GEO data management principle. It could be used as well in educational. So we know that now GEO is promoting basically the new, let's say, new phase, new student youth involvement. And for example, in our lab, we are familiarizing our students, PhD students, with the use of DMP in order to basically assess their current work regarding the Earth observation, data sharing, and data management principle. I think it's a very good target. It can be used as well as internal brainstorm. So the idea is that maybe you have implicit knowledge of sharing principle in your own lab regarding EO data process, and it's very good way to assess this regarding the formal document, which is a DMP, where you have some precise question regarding standard and interoperability. So there are already support existing. You have online tools such as Argos, DMP Online, DMP Opidor, which I will go back later in the presentation because we will team with them for next year. And you have the tool itself, which I'm presenting now, the GeoFair Data Management Plan Self-Assessment Tool. So as mentioned by Marie-Françoise, it is available already on the Geo Knowledge Hub. You have the link here. And this DMP, in a nutshell, is described as follows. So again, it is designed for GEO and FAIR principle. It is currently an Excel package with some macros. So you see the snapshot on the right side of the screen. It addresses 10 GEO DMPs and 4 FAIR principles. And on the little red square, you see that you have a tab for the dedicated DMP and FAIR principles. It is free, open, simple, easy to navigate. Well, basically, it's an Excel spreadsheet. It allows you to template, so you basically customize the look and feel. So you see the one from eShape, which has been this DMP has been developed in the framework of eShape, but you can change everything. It is based on self-assessment, so basically it is up to you to fill the content. But the DMP provides recommendation and guidance based on each of the principles, whether they are GEO or FAIR. And if you do so, you basically in a process of making a comprehensive review of those principles. There's a notion of compliance and trajectory. I will come back to this in the next slide. And in the framework of the eShape project, it has been tested and validated on 37 pilots, including the one that you will see later on from Mio about our colleague Marco. And it has been validated and tested twice. So basically, we have had 2 sprint sessions where basically the pilot have filled the DMP at a given time and revise it a year later. So again, this notion of trajectory is very interesting. I will show you a slide about this. And it is free to download on the GEO Knowledge Hub. So there was an analysis which has been done previously by 2 colleagues of GEO, I call them the 2 Bobs, Bob Shen and Bob Down, regarding the cross-analysis between GEO and FAIR. And so there was some overlapping existing, and just want to illustrate these 2 about DMP3 and interoperable in FAIR. And we have taken this into consideration in the DMP self-assessment tool, because on the left side, you have the DMP3 that you are basically currently filling in your Excel spreadsheet. And when you have filled it, basically the content is pushed to the corresponding FAIR 3 interoperable, let's say, section, and then you can basically don't have the burden to fill twice. Of course, you will have some other question in FAIR, but you can go back and forth. So the idea was to ease the process of non-asking the same question between GEO, DMP, and FAIR, as we are basically hosting them together in the same spreadsheet. Here, I would like to go on the introduction of the compliance and trajectory, which are 2 new, let's say, aspect that we've been put in place in the DMP tool, where basically we ask what is the level of compliance according to one given DMP, whether it is GEO or FAIR, about basically the status of the question you are currently facing. So is the question, for example, in the level of compliance applicable or not? Is it applicable but not started, or fully compliant? Same for the level of interoperability. You have the possibility to put some exception, and we have already identified the nature of the exception. So, and then basically you have this notion of trajectory where you can start with saying, well, let's say it's applicable but not started. And then at the end, according to a given time span, you will finish to be fully compliant. To that respect, this is a graph that has been extracted from the E-shape pilot. For the 37 E-shape pilot, we have assessed the initial versus final compliance of all those pilots regarding GEO principle and FAIR. And you can see in the blue, it was the initial status of the pilot. And after the end of the second sprint, it was the final compliance with the pilot. So whether GEO and FAIR. So you can see that there's been some improvement because, again, you are asked to think about some question you may not be aware of at the beginning, but then you end up having a solution. So beside the so-called FAIR 3.3, which was basically something that has to deal with ontology and the alignment with vocabulary, which has not been very, very well considered. So there's been basically something which has, let's say, experienced an improvement in this notion of trajectory versus the compliance. So at the end, you end up with something like this. You have a document that you basically can export to a Word or PDF for your funder or for any of the use. And you see in the red square, so this notion of you have a question, you start with a level of compliance, you end up with something being fully compliant, you have the answer, and you have potentially restrictions that are, in this case of this example, due to commercial restrictions. So you have your basically PDF final document DMP to go. I just would like to have a closer look to the same DMP3 interoperable mapping, because I don't want to put some let's say Santa Claus type of things saying, hey, it's magic. No, you have to basically deep dive into some question. And I just put some example about DMP3 and FAIR regarding the recommendation and the guidance which are provided. So for example, in those DMP3, you are asked to how basically your pilot or your data are aligned with international standards regarding interoperability. And you have some examples saying that, hey, you can use OGC, WMS, OpenDAP, or NetCDF. So again, this is something that could be very technical. So either you have some knowledge of this, it's fine. But if you don't, you have to basically scale up and be in a position to answer those questions. Same for FAIR, with basically asking quite the same about the control vocabulary or the use of digital object identifier. So this is just not to put a very, let's say, charming picture about DMP. You should be prepared to answer some let's say, very, let's say, tricky questions sometimes, but the notion of trajectory will help. So as mentioned, the current status of this tool is that it has been, now it is operated by the GEO Secretariat, which has taken over the hosting and the management of this tool since 2022. It is available on GEO Knowledge Hub. I put the link and a snapshot of the tool on the GEO Knowledge Hub. We have produced a lot of dissemination and support for this tool. And we have as well, thanks to the GEO Knowledge Hub, provide some metrics. So you see for the 2023, the current status of the download. So there's not a lot of view. I would say that it is a kind of niche market. But again, I think it's quite good to have at least over 100 potential people who have seen the tool, potentially download it. I don't know about this, but potentially use it or at least be interested in this. So to finish this presentation, I would like to provide you with an update. So currently in 2024, we will optimize data sharing and interoperability of the GEO principle for this tool, because currently, as you see, it is an Excel spreadsheet, so it has nothing to deal with interoperability. But we are going to move basically all the GEO data sharing principle and data management principle onto a platform which is called DMP Opidor. And this platform is an open source platform where you can find some model tools and online service in support of a machine actionable data management plan. And this machine actionable data management plan will be served by an API to allow you to import and export potentially the content of your DMP to, I don't know, a dashboard or things like this. So you will have a platform which will basically be adapted to be compliant with geo and data sharing management principle. It will be the first of its kind. It will be linked with potential service registry. So whether you have technical resource, personal identifier, vocabulary, metadata. So the platform is allowing this, and we will, for this, encourage data sharing principle for funder, institutional policies, and of course, for the geo community. And as a take-home message, so the current tool is, I think, the strength is that it is a powerful and flexible format framework to assess data and service compliance toward geo and FAIR principle. If you have only the idea about the question, there you have a document where you ask everything that should be answered regarding your own data and service regarding those two principles. I provide you with a generation of DMP, so on the fly, so you're ready to go. Again, in practice, it is not easy to answer all the DMP questions, so the trajectory will help basically for you to basically scale up your knowledge about some tricky questions sometime. And I would say stay tuned for 2024, where we're going to have a geo-machinable data management plan. Thank you. And I give the floor back to Bente.
Thank you very much, Lionel. For everybody that is required to do a data management plan, this tool seems to be the tool to use. I'm considering using it myself for several of the smaller cases that is relevant for me. Yes. And having somebody in the community with expertise on using it, it is also, you know, a support. You get some support. Thank you, Lionel. And we now are going to hear from somebody who actually have been using it, this tool. And I was going to share my screen and introduce Marco. Let's do that. So Marco Foligani, he is an owner or co-founder of two companies, actually, one in Italy and one in Germany, GEO and Sistema. The core business of these companies are focused around Earth observations and remote sensing applications, development and implementation. And Marco has an experience, a background from software development and system design, and currently is also doing a lot of technical and project management. So Marco, with those words, we are excited to hear about your experience using this fabulous tool that Lionel has presented to us.
Yes, thank you, Bente. Thank you, Marie-François, for the invitation of this this event. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. I think you see the initial slide of this presentation. What I'm going to do in this very short presentation is I'm going to tell you about my experience, our experience in using the self-assessment tool in eShape project, but also I would like to spend a few words about our experience in data management from other projects and how we found useful the self-assessment tool to improve the implementation of the data management plan. So basically, I selected these three relevant projects from my point of view, which are about one Horizon project just finished, which is Shelter, where we were involved as data management planner responsible and the implementation of the knowledge base structure in the project. Then, of course, we have been part of eShape project in the second sprint on board since February 22 with our pilot, which is Friend. Well, let's say, we have been exposed in some way to the self-assessment tool for the data management plan. And this is something that we found very useful, interesting, and we decided to take inspiration and to migrate or transfer some concept of the self-assessment tool to the second part of the project shelter to improve our data management plan. And then, of course, since our good experience with the self-assessment tool, and I would like also to thank Lionel for the improvement that he just presented, because I think that they are going to be very useful. And the idea is then to apply what we learned in these two projects to the new just started project, which is Rescue Me, where we have been involved with similar roles, which are the data management plan responsible and data collection. So this is comments and experience in eShape with our friend Pilot. So basically, the self-assessment tool, in our perspective, or at least what we say understood in like the scope of this project is, as just Lionel mentioned and reported, it is a way to make the fair principles that are by default quite generic, but they have to be generic because fair principles must apply to a broader, larger variety of data. But thanks to the self-assessment tool, we found very useful the way to make the FAIR principle more concrete in terms of geospatial data management. Indeed, as again mentioned, Lionel mentioned in the previous presentation, there are some similarities in GEO data management plan criteria and the FAIR principle, but this is the way we can apply, we can see in detail, we can focus the FAIR principle in the geospatial data management. So basically, again, we apply the tool. Yeah, by default, since as presented by Bente, our company is involved since since in the Earth observation and geodata services and platform implementation. We were since the beginning quite used to apply some standards in terms of interoperability, accessibility, and reusability of the data. But again, the self-assessment tool is a way to make all these concepts more structured and more shareable in our perspective. This is also true from our perspective that it remains, let's say, a tool for experts with good knowledge in data management, which is good and not good at the same time, because this means that to approach this tool, we need to raise in some way the awareness about the needs of tools for a better management of geospatial data. But at the same time, it is useful also for experts, a rapid, a quick way to summarize, to describe their own data. And again, as a comment regarding our experience in self-assessment tool, as I already said, we found useful the concepts and the way the concepts are described in this tool, and we decided also to apply part of this concept in the other projects. But let's talk about how we implemented or how we approached the data management plan in Shelter, and in which part we, let's say, introduced the concept taken from the self-assessment tool. Basically, the Shelter project was a project dealing with cultural heritage and natural heritage, which means that we approached a variety of data that were not only geospatial data, but also other kind of data concerning cultural and natural heritage, which means that our objective in the project was to increase the awareness about the FAIR principle in people with different background, different level of education, which means that we approached in the project people with expertise in geospatial data, people with no skills in managing data, and this has been have been challenges in our point of view. Indeed, and I say that because we experience also ourselves this sort of bias. People too specialized in also in operating geospatial data sometimes are so focused in the short-term target that they some way they lose the perspective, the long-term perspective, where the FAIR principle, in particular the accessibility and the interoperability and the reusability of data, are quite relevant to keep alive the data and to leave the data to the people that will come after us or after the end of the project. And the same, the challenge is also for the people not skilled in data operation that do not have the full picture of how relevant the data are, and sometimes they get lost with data. So basically, in this context, we implemented an approach to make more operative the data management plan, which means that we started defining implementing internal tool, which is the data mapping form, which is a tool to collect all the metadata about the data generated and collected in the project, and in the description of the data, which is basically an Excel file, we introduced the concept, some of the concept taken from the self-assessment tool, in particular for describing those data sets some way related to geospatial data concept. Then the data mapping form has been a relevant way to transfer the abstract concept of FAIR deep into the project. Indeed, thanks to the data mapping form described and implemented following the FAIR principle and the GEO data management principle, we collected and described the data sets from the technical partner of the project that were in charge to implement the processing tool, and also from the local stakeholders that provided local data. And then, thanks to this approach, this tool, we facilitated the implementation of the sharing data tools in the project, which were the data lake and the data-driven platform. And of course, this has been also a tool to keep alive the data and to update on a regular basis the data generated and shared in the project. Indeed, thanks to this tool, we have been able to review the data, to put some of the data sets in quarantine because no more use for the project, and to introduce new data generated along the project. Unfortunately, we could do that only in the second part of the project because of our late involvement in eShape, as I already mentioned. But as this is about the operationalization of the data management plan in terms of tools that can be used and applied to the project. But as I said before, as I said at the beginning of the slides concerning the project shelter, the challenge was also to extend the concept to categories of people that are not familiar with geospatial data and more in general with the FAIR principle, which means that what we consider also useful and in the project was to provide some kind of training to both technical partner and non-technical partner to disseminate and to share the concept and to mention that there are tools that can support expert and non-expert user in managing the data in a proper way. Indeed, we report in our training sessions in reference the tool just presented by Lionel. And another aspect is also applied in the project has been also the tailoring, which means that we identified the gap for each, say, pilot of the project. Unfortunately, they were only 5, and we provide the actions and suggestions to fill the gap to make their own data more compliant with the FAIR principle. So, thanks to this approach, we received a very good feedback from the Commission. They appreciated the way we implemented the data management plan, and also, in particular, they mentioned that the part concerning the guidelines and the tailoring of the FAIR principle for the open labs has been a quite good choice. And so as lessons learned from the eShape and shelter that we want to transfer and to apply to the new project is well, first, of course, never stop increasing the awareness about the data management relevance, since while there are some domains like OGC, like experts and in geospatial data that could be quite aware about the relevance, there are many domains where geospatial data and general data are used that are still not applying or are not quite familiar with the FAIR principle. Again, never stop improving the data management tools. We experienced it in ourselves. We started with a concept in data management. Then, thanks to the involvement in eShape, we found very useful a tool developed by experts, and we decided to implement this tool, part of the concept, in our project, which means that yeah, since the data are evolving a lot, we will have always problem in managing properly the data, which means that we we have to keep going in improving the data management tools. And for this reason, I appreciated the presentation of Lionel about the evolution in terms of web service instead of an Excel file, which makes, let's say, more user-friendly the tool in my point of view. And then the other lessons learned are the tailoring of the principle, because we have to be aware about the real capability of the target we are approaching, which means that sometimes they are quite far from being able to apply the tools, and they need to start from training guidelines and documentation. And then I think that, as I said before, the FAIL principles are useful for high-level data assessment, but then to apply the principles, we need tools, operational tools to apply in concrete way the principle in the projects. And yeah, this is my experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marco. This is super interesting. And the last point you mentioned, by the way, is a nice perspective on how the FAIR principles and the GEO data management principles actually complement each other. One of the points. So I just made that observation. Thank you very much, Marco.
Okay,
and you have some questions in the chat, but we can take that during the discussions. Okay, so we are waiting patiently for that. Meanwhile, I will introduce yet another tool for in situ. Well, actually, I will introduce Joan, who will introduce this tool. Joan Maso is a principal investigator of CREAF, so the Ecological and Forestry Application Research Center, placed in Catalonia in Spain. And he has a background on geospatial interoperability, GIS, and remote sensing. He is passionate, I dare say that, on making data interoperable on a code level. And he has been working on achieving that through a number of standardization communities, such as OGC, ISO, and IEEE. So he is really diving deep into what it takes to make data interoperable. And of course, he has been involved in GEO also for many, many years. He is also an expert on citizen science and have been both running or coordinating and participating in many, many research projects, including those of the European framework programs. Joan, we are looking forward to some code.
Okay, maybe not this time.
Oh, you say you're required that you should be able to show code. That's why I'm saying that.
Yeah. I can make an effort. If you ask me. Yes, thank you for that. This is, as you said, a presentation of a tool to collect requirements for in situ data. We are doing this in collaboration with the European Environmental Agency and in a small consortium of four partners that Evenflow is leading. So what we have, and from our point of view, one of the things that we might need. In GEO, we all know we have this GEO portal. That's a tool to discover and access about what data we have. Users submit their queries, and they have this hope that they will find what they need. But what happens if their needs are not covered? How we can know and organize their needs? This is what we are trying to cover here, in particular for the in situ part of the data. So this was part of the strategy of the in situ subgroup here in GEO to try and know first the user needs and have a more user-oriented approach in GEO, and also at the very end with the aim or the motivation of actually fulfilling those needs. So with what was discussed was actually to create a database tool and a standard methodology to collect requirements for in situ data for the benefit of the GEO activities. We want to know if the current in situ data sets met the user requirements, if the current data is only partially useful, if there are barriers to access and use and reuse, or if new data should be collected. And with that, we went for this name that is actually the contraction of geospatial requirements. And if you don't get why we are using this little dino in the logo, you will understand that immediately if you remember the famous and scary T-Rex. So the process that, I mean, we wanted to do this right. So we started by using the ISO 19101 reference data model for standardization in the field of geographical information. And we also studied previous practical implementations that were more focused, so just the WMO, sorry for the S, WMO Oscar, and Copernicus CIS Square. The Oscar is about weather and climate data. The Copernicus is about fulfilling the Copernicus services requirements. So we started with this process of trying to have a conceptual model on what we needed. And we did that in UML. We discussed with our colleagues. We discussed with the EA. We presented that here and there and everywhere. And we just tried to organize the conclusions into something that was implementable. So then we went to a logical data model that could be used in a database structure of tables. And finally, there is a physical data model encoded in SQL tables. That is the one that runs behind the user interface. I know that everybody was waiting for my UML diagram. This is something that generates applauses in the public because everybody is actually looking for that. And this one is actually very simple. It tries to emphasize 4 elements in the conceptual model. We have the need. So this is a problem or an issue that the user is trying to address using in situ data. Please remember that we try to fulfill the needs of GEO, and GEO is a very heterogeneous community. We cannot talk about Copernicus services only. We cannot talk about climate data only. So that's why we use this abstract need concept. To actually fulfill that need, the user should probably execute some task that is a process that tries to cover the need by creating something new, maybe. And to do that, the user requires some in situ data. And it can be characterized with some metadata parameters, and I will discuss later. And the whole thing is to actually produce something in the end. And we can call that the product, but we don't talk a lot about that in GREX. So a need is a problem or an issue that should be addressed by using in situ data, as we said. Which kinds of needs we have been collecting? Mostly we have the some need for calibrating and validating remote sensing or other in situ data, or maybe even calibrating the results of a numerical model, or assessing the numerical model, or to actually demonstrating some scientific hypothesis. Then we have more pragmatic needs, like maybe we are organizing an essential variable product and we are collecting in situ to actually do that, or we want to provide some kind of a data server or service or system with in situ. We can also go into the policy monitoring and decision-making process as some of the possible needs, and of course we could try and also create some kind of a product or service that has some kind of a commercial interest. Maybe we miss something, so we are still open to other needs types, I can say. In terms of the user requirements, that is not rocket science, I have to say. It's the common division into the three main components of the geospatial information. So we need to know about the topic, we need to know about the geographical area, we need to know about the time. We also need to know about the thresholds in terms of data quality, so uncertainties in thematic, uncertainties in resolution, and so on. We should explore a little bit which are the most important barriers that could prevent us to actually using this data set. And since we are talking about in situ, there are some specifics about in situ that we want to know. If you require even distribution, if you require coordinated measures with the one that you need at this particular moment, or how representative are the individual in situ observations from the area they were collected. And the subtitle of this slide says simple metadata, and there is a quote in that, because what we realize with the interviews with the different stakeholders that are helping us to test the tool is that it's not so simple, and sometimes it requires a dialogue between us and the user to actually better profile the concepts that we are asking and helping them making other questions and so on to actually focus on the actual response of these individual questions that maybe we all know more or less, but the answer is complicated sometimes. So in terms of implementation, we have a website. This is www.grex.grumets.cat. We have a brand new web interface to actually collect those requirements. But as I said, I mean, we want to guide users into this process. We want to set up a dialogue in order to understand first which is the product they are aiming for, what's exactly the need, which are the individual thresholds in those requirements. Sometimes it's not possible to actually provide a single response, and maybe an interval could be better, these kind of things. And this is what is possible with the interface. We are also allowing fair access to the user requirements table. I mean, we have been here in this telco talking about data management principles, fair principles. If we forget about, sharing these requirements, we will not be fair then. So definitely this is something that we want to do in the spirit of this. We haven't run the self-assessment in ourselves, so that's something that we could do, Leonel. So where GREX is heading to? We know the first part of the process. No, the user has a need. it identifies the process to realize the need. Somehow we are not asking many things about the process, just a small abstract. The user looks for the in situ data maybe in the GEO portal, maybe in other places. He or she may find the thing or may not. He will be more interested in providing us requirements if she haven't found the data, but we also want to know the requirements of data that exists. That is definitely something that we want. So here we see these components that I was talking about providing precise requirements. So the question is what happened next? And this is something that we are still exploring what we could do. Something that is kind of obvious to do could be to actually reuse the GEO community, to actually redirect the requirements to maybe a data provider that could know about the sector and provide an answer to that requirement. And that answer could be in terms of there is already existing data. Sorry, it's not in the GEO portal. You were not able to find it there for some reason. Sorry, there are barriers, but I will give you some instructions on how to overcome those barriers, or simply recognizing, yes, there is this gap. We cannot provide you with something valuable for you. If that's the case, we will try, or we would use the GEO community to actually try to aggregate those requirements into something that justify the need for overcome barriers. So we could try to generate some kind of an agenda to overcome those barriers, or if the situation is there is not enough data capture, we could try to stimulate the creation of more data or new data for that. We are very thankful to the number of initiatives that were involved in the initial design and testing of the GREX interface. We have collected many suggestions in that process. We have applied some of them. We are in the process of applying more of them. And the message is very simple. We are going to chase other initiatives because we really believe this is a process that could benefit GEO. We know that this is a big, we have been told, this is a big task. So it needs to be a combination of interviews that help people to understand how the thing works, plus some extra time maybe of the same people providing us more requirements for different needs once they are familiar with the process, and we are willing to actually give that support to all of you. And if you go to this website that I have mentioned, you will see actually maybe I can do that. You will see this button that says ask us for support. That's the main button here. I require support. So we will give that support to you. All right. So if you wanna know more about the requirements in general, you can read this paper that we released about it, describing the background and all the details in the process that we use to actually generate the tool and some initial assessment of the requirements that we covered at the very beginning. So thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to describe you this. We are actually looking for extending this work, and we believe this is the right thing to do. We believe that we need to focus more on the users and what the users need. So this is what moves us, if I can say that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Joel. Indeed, it's a new species. I can say that was created with the GREX. And yes, so thank you very much. The floor is now open. We have some questions from already in the chat, but please do and raise your hand. By all means, raise your hand also. Let me see. Yeah, I concur with you, Lionel. Very nice QR code. I don't know if you noticed the very nice dinosaur, the new species discovered by John et al. Okay. Let me see. We have asked, yeah.
Yes, I would just, as type of wrap-up, mention that these are completely two different types of tools. They don't have the same level of maturity, because as said by Lionel, the self-assessment tool has been used, validated by the 37 pilots from eShape before being made available to GEO. And we have seen with Marco that he has already reused for several projects and found, I would say, operational benefit from it. When the tool from Joanne is brand new, we are still looking for feedback. We are typing it's type of still co-design of the tool. Of course, the first one can improve, and we wait for feedbacks also if you have used or if you need this type of tool. But the one Joanne has presented is not at the same level of maturity and addressing a complete different type of need. So just to clarify.
Yes, well, yeah, okay, Lionel, I give the floor to you.
Yeah, thanks. Yes, I would like to really emphasize the need of your Joanne, your step 6 in your diagram, which basically collect everything and try to provide some requirement for pushing those the material you already have. So I know myself, I have feel these requirements regarding EC2 measurement for the renewable and especially the solar sector. So I'm sure you don't have that much in that sector, but to be potentially representative, I'm not claiming that I'm a representative of this sector at all, but I have some experience as well. But the thing is that it could be having this document formalized will definitely help to reach out for the community to some potentially either the step 5, so the one who hold the data, who maybe don't have that much incentive to release them. I know in France that there are some company, no, it's not a company, it's a public authority, which is called the CRE, Commission Regulation for Energy, who is holding basically a lot of in situ measurement that are attached to a PV plant, and they are basically in the obligation to release those data into a so-called technological platform. But it has never reached out the concept of technological platform. So this could be something I can reach out to those guys, say, okay, there's some work should be done internationally, which is endorsed by an initiative such as GEO, who are promoting the idea of releasing the data. This is why, this is what you may be basically have some benefit to do so. So again, I guess this step 6 will be very interesting to do, whatever the material you may already have, even if it's, I don't know in which step you are regarding this process, but I would think it would be very valuable.
Yeah. Did you want to comment on that, Joan, or
yeah, well, step 6 was the geo aggregate requirements, no? So it's this process where we compare the different needs of different people and we try to look for commonalities. And if we see those commonalities, definitely we identify the gap that has a justification that is stronger than if only one particular user needs that. So that could be a way of actually prioritizing the findings and then using the conveying power of GEO as a community to find out what we can do to improve. Where we stand at this moment, we are at stand 3. We want to collect a critical mass of requirements to actually start moving into the number 5 and 6. We also want to pilot these process to actually contact the providers and see how they perceive this user interaction and how we could be the channel of that. We will require the providers to be proactive on that. So let's see how it works. And also the process of aggregating requirements, if we have to do it in GEO, then we will see how we can do it in terms of which is the group or the community that should do that. No, I believe we do not have anything yet that has this role, and this is something that we should discuss with the secretariat and with the GEO activities and see how we can do it in the future.
But so the way I see it is that, for instance, taking the example of a digital twin, that is an example of where you need to solve a problem. You need to have both remote sensing data, you need in situ data, you need citizen science data. So, and some of the requirements for those data are known, and you know how to describe them. You know how to describe the metadata but some of the data you are not fully aware how to describe them. So, and also, for instance, there are when you have new sensors, new type of instruments that you want to add on to this, how do you, I mean, there are some requirements that you discover along the way that you are developing the twin in this case, so a digital representation of reality. Some requirements, so for instance, ocean model, or you need the resolution and the spatial resolution, that already, the parameter, etc. But you might have difficulties of describing then the complementary data, the additional data. Now, to me, it sounds like a combination of both your tools could be useful to help describing that. Maybe that, digital twins could be also a test, so testing these tools. I don't know if you, or maybe I have misunderstood how these tools will work.
No, I mean for the requirements, definitely. There are different digital twins now in the process of being created, some more mature than others. We have the ocean, we have also the biodiversity, and as you said, I mean, the twins require more direct feedback between the model part, that's the digital part, and the reality, and that is done by sensors. Some of those are in situ, some others could be remote sensors, and the more applications we find with the digital twin, the more requirements we may have in terms of the different characteristics, maybe more resolution here and there that is needed, more temporal resolution, and so on. And then the industry could respond with better sensors and better solutions. So that completes the feedback. But as I say at the beginning, I mean, we are moving from this first mission of GEO that was, we don't know what is on there in terms of data. Please give us a catalog. We did that. No, we have what we know what we have now, and but maybe what we have is not enough. So that's the part that we are trying to address on how to improve that.
Yeah. So for GEO, I mean, if you talk about GEOS, we know that the different data providers may actually come with the metadata, so descriptions of the requirements, if you like, and that's another way of saying it. But then when it's placed on GEOS, some of that information is disappearing, and thus you are missing that discoverability or fair access, as you say. Just a little comment on that, by the way. So fair access is when we are talking about geo, then it means discoverable and accessible, right? So it's the same, that you actually can find it. That's, you know, discover it in a federated system, which geos is supposed to be. So yeah, so that's what you mean. So in order to do that, you need to have a description of each of the, you know, the in situ data, the parameters, like you said, the very simple one, right? Those different simple one, which corresponds very well to what we have been discussing in the dialogue series earlier on the data management principles. Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, this is also something that we could discuss. How well the requirements can be ingested in the Geo portal to actually automate this process of knowing if there is a gap or there is not a gap in the data sets that are out there. Which are the difficulties? Maybe the portal is not complete. Maybe the metadata is not complete as you described before. Maybe the interface doesn't allow us to actually separate the concerns into this is the topic, this is the area, this is the time, this is the quality I want. That's another dialogue that we can have, and I would like to have this dialogue because, you know, I'm a technical person, so that's the kind of dialogue where I feel comfortable.
Yeah. And Marco, I see that you have you do some comments there. Yeah, because I'm not sure if I understood you correctly, Marco, when you said that the specialists sometimes don't see the value of sharing their data across disciplines. Does that mean that they feel that they say enough about the data so they can use it, but in order for others to be able to use it, they need to apply, you know, to have more descriptions, more metadata? Is that what you mean, or?
No, yeah, it's that the, yeah, of course it is also based on my experience, but sometimes it seems that the specialists are too focused on their own, let's say, short-time target that yeah, maybe in general or in principle they see the benefit, but they are not so motivated in applying the FAIR principle because, of course, at least at the beginning, it takes time to understand well how to apply and how to apply properly, and how to keep alive the data also for those that are supposed to use the data in, let's say, after the project or after 1, 2, 3 years and so on. If there are good reasons because they are involved in data consolidation, data preservation, of course, they are strongly motivated in applying the sharing interoperability principles. In case of some operator that are, let's say, stuck in short-term or repetitive, not interactive work, it could be a little bit harder to convince them about the relevance and the necessity, the need of the principles.
Yeah, I think we have the situation in Iliad, the digital twin of the ocean, where the digital twin that we are, you know, the framework that we are building, we are facilitating the exchange of components of one twin, say from one thematic area to another, and also from one location to another. In order for that to happen, you need to do the cataloging so that you can discover it, right? And this is where, so a good data management principles, you know, an approach, a data management plan will help in that. But then you also enter, as we did in Iliad, we entered into the semantics challenges. You know, how do you describe it? In one thematic area, you can describe the same parameter with different words and vice versa. So we in Iliad, we decided we are developing an ocean information model. Where do you see an ocean information model? Can both of you, well, all of you, comment on an information model's role in the tools that you have described?
Yeah, since also as NEO we are involved in Iliad, we are approaching the information model, and what we find useful is what Raul is going to develop is a sort of tool to homogenize the different vocabularies into the information model, because you are right, the ontology could be a very, let's say, hard issue to manage, because different domains call in different way the same things. But in any case, we need some kind of or lookup table or model to translate and to converge in order to make shareable or interoperable the data. Otherwise, they remain in their own specific domain, and they do not degrade in all the domain.
Yeah. So I guess, Joan, this is the next level then for QREC, right? QRECs. Because this will require a lot more complexity to the description of the requirements, right?
Yeah. We are making an effort to actually keep the description simple, and even with that level of simplicity, it takes a while to actually be clear and concrete with your requirements. I believe this is really a process. So in the same way as we have difficulties in formalizing the requirements, we also have difficulties on formalizing a data management plan. And that's really something surprising. No, you are in an European project. We have great experts in their field, and they are super scared, at least at the beginning, to actually do that. And but this is we need to overcome those difficulties step by step. No? And that's an educational process, I believe. Yes, Leonel.
Yeah, if I may just echo your remark and the question from Marie-Françoise in the chat. So again, it's something that can be a bit scary. So the idea of going step by step, such as you mentioned, is a good idea. So don't answer the question you don't know, but try to answer the one you know. And then the one you don't know maybe come as a little music in your head, and then bam, you arrive with some fact. Say, hey, it's echoed the question I didn't know, and basically, so living document is key for this type of exercise, because again, a project or an action or a research thematic area is a